radio talk show that made Philippine FM radio talk. Winner of multiple KBP Golden Dove Awards. Your host, JC Tevez.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Good Thursday evening to all of you. On the 21st of October, JC Tevez here with you with Heard on Thursdays, the iconic radio program that made FM radio talk. Welcome to the show, and tonight's a little nice little episode because we're talking about one of our favorite comforts in life, literal cold comforts or hot comforts. This crazy time is coffee. We love coffee. In moderate consumption, coffee gets us up and keeps us going, lifts the spirit and stimulates the brain, energizes and relaxes all at the same time sometimes. Whether you prefer it hot or cold, black or creamy, straight up or sweet, brewed or boiled, pre-collated or poured over espresso, latte, macchiato, ole, frappe, decaf, or simply 3-in-1. If you're a simple guy like me. Tonight, we have officers of the Philippine Coffee Guild, Coffee Collective of the Philippines, to sing the praises of Philippine coffee and to invite us to the Best of Philippines Coffee's Expo 2021, happening until October 31, as you can see here flashing on the screen. If you're not joining us, we're also live on Facebook, facebook.com/RX931. It's all happening at the Unimart Mall in Capitol Commons. Tonight, joining us on the show on Heard on Thursdays, we have Ron Yu, president of the Philippine Coffee Guild. He's the founder and head roaster of Yellow Turtle Coffee. We also have Sly Samonte, director of the Guild, and also founder and head roaster of Lost Islands Center for Cafe in El Nido, Palawan. And we have Joe Almanzor, who is the communications officer of the Coffee Guild, also faculty at DLSU, De La Salle University, and is also a barista of the Curator Coffee and Cocktails and co-founder of Kubo Coffee. So we'd like to curl up with a cup of coffee if it won't keep you up too much, but let's bring him onto the stage or onto the screen. Good evening, all three of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Joe, Ron, and Sly. Thank you so much. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, we're good.
Good to
Still
hear.
got energy at 9 for more coffee.
Thank you so much for taking the
Thanks for
time
having us.
to join us. Let's get to know a little bit about the three of you because we need to bring everyone up to speed. First of all, before we talk about the Coffee Guild, let's talk about you guys as coffee people, coffee roasters, coffee baristas. So I don't know the actual, maybe there's a term that you guys can tell us about, but let's start with Ron here. Ron, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, also about you are the head roaster of Yellow Turtle Coffee. Talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So hi everyone. I'm the head roaster of Yellow Turtle Coffee. So it's a fairly young company. We roast coffee, supply retail bags and wholesale. But before that, I used to own a cafe. It's a brew atelier. Used to be in Quezon City as well. But I've been in the industry for almost 11 years now. I really started as a roaster, and then I immediately fell in love with the way things with the coffee industry in the Philippines because I got to know several coffee farmers, and since then, you know,
Nope, we lost Ron.
I think we're losing Ron. Let me try to bring him back into the stage. Ron, there we go.
okay, so where was I? So I fell in love with coffee because I met several really passionate coffee farmers, and since then, I really, the world of coffee took over my life. So yeah.
Nice to meet you, Ron. Thank you for joining us. Let's go to your right if you're watching the Facebook Live. Let's go to Joe. Joe, tell us about your story with coffee.
Um, I was a coffee consumer. That's the first thing. So I really started with Starbucks. I was in grad school and I needed a place to work. So I started in Starbucks, and then a few years later, probably from all the sugar, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic and I was trained to drink coffee black. So I'm really more a consumer. I started as a consumer, and then since I'm a teacher, so I actually had two students who introduced me to specialty coffee. And then when they introduced me, I started coffee crawling. I ended up in Brew Atelier
Mm-hmm.
So
for Tutoron's shop. And then eventually I realized that I'm a literature major, so I got into coffee for the narratives. I love listening to the people all throughout, not just the people you meet in shops, but people who also work in coffee. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized that it's impossible to get those narratives without fully immersing in it. So I applied as a barista at the Greater, and then that's it. And then now I'm working on my dissertation, and it's still about coffee.
Nice.
So
So
there
coffee
you
through and
go.
through. I love that. And of course we have Sly. Sly, tell us about. Actually, we heard that you just came back from El Nido. Is that correct? Like your
Yeah,
work is.
so I used to be based up in La Union, working with El Union Coffee, and 3 years ago we set out as a company to see what opportunities there were in El Nido, and haven't left there since because that was right before pandemic that I kind of a year before pandemic hit that I was grounded there. So we have a nice little coffee roastery, and I'm the center director. So our coffee is about our little coffee shop, coffee roastery is about Philippine coffees and promoting them in the tourist sector. So especially towards foreigners and people who want to come and experience kind of the wealth and the breadth of the Philippines. I wanted to help change their minds about what Philippine coffee can taste like, and we're not just about instant coffee because there's a lot of roadsides that people know, or we're not just about Barako, but we have really high quality, really tasty stuff as well. So now I'm in Palawan, and I have two places that I'm working on. It's called one is called Lick or Lost Island Center for Cafe, and the other one is called Islas Maquinas, and that one's kind of more like a lifestyle moto coffee shop.
Fantastic.
So
I really like
yeah.
what Joe said about how coffee is what really a main draw for her was the narrative. And you brought up Sly that you want to bring up how coffee is actually a huge part of the Philippine tourism industry, or can be a big part of the Philippine tourism industry. And actually I wanted to expound on that and get the thoughts also of Ron and Joe, since you guys seem to have this love for coffee that expend that extends beyond just waking you up in the morning. Normally, people just love coffee; it wakes me up. But to kind of know the story of coffee and
Puts us to
like
sleep too.
right, true. But what else it can do for the tourism and just how to make it more well known in the country. And I am guessing that's a reason why you started the guild. Is that correct? Is that am I correct in assuming that, Ron?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, partly it's one of the reasons, but more like actually the inception of the coffee guild started about 2 3 years ago. It was just between industry friends and industry colleagues, you know. So we were just talking about the gaps in the coffee industry, like proper education about Philippine coffees, um, and there are actually so many gaps or issues, concerns within the industry itself. Um, we just talked about, why don't we form a group, and it will just start as a small group between friends, between industry partners, and let's see where it will take us. And yeah, so um, last year when the pandemic hit, so the coffee industry, most especially the cafes, were crippled. No, so every cafes were forced to close, and so we thought, I think we there's something that we can do as a group, as the Philippine Coffee Guild, to probably empower the cafe owners, the baristas who don't have work at the time. So we did this little cold brew donation that we did. So we went out, we gave some free cold brews to frontliners, medical frontliners, the police, and since then the guild started to grow. We have a lot of volunteers coming in, and then we were noticed by our current partners now, other NGOs. And so that's how it started, really. There's no one reason, but just because there are just so many gaps that we need to fill in the industry. So that's
Right.
why we're here.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and to have a, I guess, a centralized platform to talk with your peers. And it seems to me just the way that Joe told her origin story with coffee. Play on words there, I guess. Right, origin's a coffee term. I think, is it? But anyway, so when Joe told her story of how she met you, Ron, it was just through her love for coffee, and it seems to be that seems to be the way that. All you coffee people, I don't know if that is that a bad thing to say. You coffee people all meet each other like that, right? I mean, I feel like you guys all somehow know each other, and you don't really see each other necessarily as competition. But I want to get your take on. Well, Joe started out with Starbucks. And, one of the, the conglomerate. Do you guys view, now that you're into the local Philippine coffee culture? Do you view the bigger companies, the conglomerate coffee? I guess you would call them the fast food of coffee. Do you see them as competition, or are they also part of the ecosystem of coffee here in the Philippines? Wanted to get your thoughts on that. Whoever wants to answer.
I think there's. Who are you pointing at? I mean, I think there's always something good in every cup because every bean is still being labored. So
Okay.
really, it's just probably coming up with a healthier system.
Mhm. Okay, makes sense. And Sly, since you're the director of the guild, can you fill us in more on the gaps that Ron was referring to? You said there's a lot of gaps when it comes to coffee, and I guess coffee knowledge, coffee consumption, maybe coffee, everything coffee. Can you fill us in on give us more detail on what gaps those are and how we fill those gaps?
Sure. I think as a coffee professional, one of the biggest gaps is explaining that coffee doesn't taste like coffee.
Okay.
A lot of people expect that, okay, I'm gonna get coffee cup and it's gonna taste like my Expo or my Copico or my mocha cake, and
Mhm.
the world has gone beyond that coffee taste, and now coffee tastes like a lot of things. So like the biggest gap for us is telling people that, oh, there's like a note of flower or like a note of strawberry or something like weird in their cup. And for most people, like we said, coffee is coffee. For us,
Yes.
it's like this amazing thing where so many different flavors and experiences come out of it. And the biggest gap for me when we start talking about it is that, yeah, this is the seed of a fruit that tastes like a fruit, and it's got a billion kind of different flavors that you can find from it. So I mean, at the very basic level, that's one of them. Like when you think red wine, you're always thinking, oh, which type of red wine? You don't think red wine just tastes like red wine. So
Hmm.
coffee's kind of been in that space where it's redefining what coffee tastes like, and that's one gap. There's plenty of gaps within our Philippine coffee group, but yeah, I think that's the one I'll talk about. Maybe Joe and Ron want to speak about other gaps in the coffee chain.
Okay, so all right, so I guess another gap that we really want to address and fill is uh, the concern now, the problem. Okay, I'll call it the problem of mislabeled coffees, local coffees, especially those that are being sold. I'm pretty sure, JC, you've heard or maybe you've tried Sagada coffees. You know,
Yes.
it's quite famous when you say Sagada coffees that it must be that great, no?
Yes.
But really, Sagada is just a small community of coffee farmers, and they really can't produce a lot of coffees. So it is really impossible to that we have a lot of Sagada coffees being sold out there. So there's this. That's just one problem. So there are coffees being sold as Sagada, but didn't really come from that place.
Oh wow.
So
So
that alone is a problem because it affects the livelihood of the real Sagada farmers.
makes sense. Okay. How do you address that then? I mean, do you bring that to light as first of all against the companies that are doing that, or against the brands that are doing that, or are you more reaching out to the farmers in Sagada themselves, for example, and trying to make them aware of it, because I'm sure they're maybe they are aware of it or not aware of it, whatever the issue may be. What's the best way to approach it? Is it
Okay. Yeah. Let's wait for him for JC to come back.
Commercial, if in case you're here, please,
Okay.
please,
So
please, whatever
please
is down on your screen,
please
please.
join us. Uh, from the 23rd to the 31st, we'll be at the Unimart Mall in Capital Commons for the Philippine Best of Philippine Coffees Expo. We'll be featuring their authentic, traceable, quality Philippine coffees. So I'm not sure if we're live actually. So
Did we take
We
over
are
the radio
live.
show? So good
We're
evening.
live.
Welcome to RX 93.1.
Ghost live.
I'm your host tonight, and we're talking coffee.
yes. Okay. So while we're at it, so Sly, so you're bringing in some PCQC coffees on the during the expo, right?
Yeah, so I'm super excited to finally be able to join you guys for a activity. And yeah,
yeah.
we just finished the Philippine coffee quality auction. When was it? August? No,
Sometime,
July?
yeah, yeah, sometime June actually.
June or yeah, June.
Yeah,
And these were coffees, just so for those people who aren't familiar with it, who are tuned in, that these are coffees that farmers have meticulously grown, processed, and dried, and roasted and tasted, and believe that they are outstanding cups of coffee. They are well worth notoriety and have characteristics which are desirable. Um, whether they're fruit flavors, deep sweetness, aromas, or fruit acidity, or just acidity. The coffees in the coffee quality auction are some of the best that you can find in the Philippines, if not the best. And this weekend, we will be sharing some of those coffees at the Expo on October 23 in Capital. Is it Capital Commons? Or
yeah.
Unimart. Unimart, yeah,
Minimum capital
inside
commons.
Unimart. And me and a group of friends were able to get, I think, the first or the second lot. I can't remember anymore. They were all such good lots. And I was very happy to join you guys for that one and raise some awareness. And we got a lot of them above a good amount. So we have one that I'm bringing from a grower named Aureliano, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
And super
Yeah,
excited to taste it. I just roasted it the other day, and we're gonna have a few more of those coffees available at the event, right, Ron?
right. Yeah. So can't wait to try your coffee. So yeah, when we say the PCQC auction, so just for the sake of our listeners who aren't, we're taking over the station. No? So okay, so for the
Yes,
sake of our listeners
we will be
who
back
aren't
in like
aware of,
2 weeks, so we
yeah, who
can
aren't
stay.
aware of the PCQC, yeah. So actually, the PCQC is a competition of local coffee farmers, and it's based on certain criterias, especially
all right?
specifically
Oh,
Back.
there's
in the
JC. He's
sensory.
back. Welcome
Got
Yeah.
back to
it.
the
So
show, JC. How are you doing tonight?
okay,
These ladies and
thank you for
gentlemen.
joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
we
joining
technical
us.
difficulties this evening. Our computer
So yeah,
crashed,
so
but
we have a special guest tonight,
go
Mr.
ahead.
JC.
He's from RX 93.1.
Can I just say,
Sure.
I've always wanted to be a student shop before, and like
Oh,
you gave
nice.
me a few minutes of that.
Well, what did I miss? You guys can interview me now. What did I miss? What have you been talking about here?
We talked a
Did
little about the expo.
Expo? Okay, well, why don't we go back to that? I'll ask questions about the Expo. So the Expo is taking place October 23 to 31. So if people are just funneling in, or people who might have missed it who were listening on air, what happens at the Philippine Coffees Expo? What can they expect to see there? What can they do there? Yeah, basically talk about it. What's happening on those 9 days, throughout those 9 days.
Okay. So yeah. So we'll be doing the first ever Best of Philippine Coffees Expo this year, and this is actually the first physical expo that will be held this year. So it, during the expo, we'll be showcasing uh, authentic and traceable Philippine coffees from all over the country. And these are not just the coffees that you can see. I'm sorry to say this, but on grocery shelves. So these are very select, fine and specialty coffees from coffee farmers, and like we were talking about earlier. So Sly will be bringing in some delicious coffees from the PCQC auction. Yeah, so maybe Sly would like to tell us about it again.
Well, I'm an avid fan of this auction. I guess if we go back to one of JC's questions a while ago, what are one of the gaps? And Ron touched on it with Sagada, but traceability is really one of the issues in coffee in general, and also for coffee in the Philippines. So knowing where things come from and knowing that your farmer is getting paid as much money as possible, because generally speaking it's the opposite. The person at the last hand of holding the cup out to the customer is getting the most money, whereas these coffees that we're featuring are by farmers who are wanting to innovate, wanting to work hard, wanting to be traceable, and doing their best to make the produce, the coffee, shine, and giving it to people like me and Ron who love to roast and also brew coffee and make those flavor notes really come out. So um, these coffees are traceable, and the money goes pretty much straight to the farmers. So we were able to raise quite a lot of money for the farmers through the auction this year. The bidding started, I believe, at, was it $4 or $8 kilo? It was one for the robusta. It was about four, and for the arabica it was 6 or 8. And we hit about $50 a kilo for several farmers, maybe four or five of them, and everyone has gotten below over the minimum amount. So we're very happy that people are interested in Philippine coffees, and they're interested in coffees which are traceable, and they're interested in helping and investing in our Philippine coffee farmers and producers. And that's one of the things that we're really going to be highlighting during this expo, is that we're going to be talking about farmers by their last name. And we're not the only country to do this, and we're not the only people, but we're definitely one of the last in line. Most farmers are known by the name Nescafe, so nobody really knows who those people are. And now
Right.
I was just saying that we have a coffee from a farmer named Aureliano, or a coffee farmer named Feli, and it's kind of making this foreign thing a little bit easier for us Filipinos to understand when it's named after
Yes.
someone's familiar last name.
Right. In a sense, adding more, I guess, is a good word to use, transparency to the coffee
Right,
industry.
right. Transparency and traceability.
That's fantastic. And I like the thing that I guess would be a concern to people who are talking about coffee, who are used to maybe just the consumer level or consumer price coffee. When you say specialty coffee, sometimes they might get the impression that, is it expensive? Because just like, for example, with red wine, the old red wine, like I'm not a wine guy, right? But like the 1766 red wine is better than the grocery store red wine, but it's also like 10 times more expensive. Is that the
Right, yeah.
with coffee? Is that usually the case with coffee? Are there coffees that can reach really high prices, specialty coffees, or is coffee relatively affordable for everyone, even if it's a specialty coffee?
Yeah, who wants to take this one, guys?
This one.
Oh, Joe.
The consumer. I think it's a bit more expensive than, and if you compare it to 3-in-1. But if you calculate, say for example, you usually buy your coffee outside, and you spend like 200 a cup. It's actually cheaper to buy a bag, which you can
Mm,
brew for a longer time. So it really is. I think that's also. Wait, sorry, my dog wants to join the show.
sure.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think that's one of the things that the micro roastery I also started last year tries to address. Like, why is it expensive? I think more than asking if it is, I think it's a better question to ask why it's a bit more expensive. So that's why traceability is important, or what you call transparency, because you want to know just how much goes back to the farmer. Because say
Mhm.
if you say if buy an instant pack that says the cover is of a farmer but the brand is not the farmer, you'd wonder if every single money you put out on that sachet will actually go back to the farmer. You want to know just how much and where all the money goes. So I think that's one of the things that, well, I personally tried to address with a little micro roastery project that I put up, which was Kubo Coffee. So I think, yeah, that's one of the things we're doing. Every single bag we do, we name it after the single farmer we get it from, and we also show them just how much goes to what. And we also even include the percentage that goes to the creatives, the one who designs the bags and all of that,
Mhm.
because that's also part of the things that you need to show.
Yeah.
So traceability is very important.
Nice. And during the technical difficulties, I'm not sure if you talked about it, but for those of us who are, or for our Monster listeners who are just listening via radio, via on air, I have to ask the question. So, when at the coffee expo, or just the when for the coffee guild, you say that educating people about coffee is a huge part of it, and a big thing that confuses a lot of regular people like me who are not experienced with all these coffee products is the way that you make coffee. There's like a million ways to make coffee other than mixing it out of a, pouring it into hot water and stirring it. So is that also something? Are there a for at the coffee expo? Will there are there tools and coffee? What do you call those, utensils? I don't know the correct term, but are there coffee tools that you'll be selling and educating people? Yeah. So I see Joe pointing at Ron, who seems to be the guy who answers this all the time. Ron, can you tell us more about the different ways to make coffee and what you would be selling there, or at least educating people on?
Yeah, okay. So, but I'll let Sly talk about the million ways of preparing coffee. But I'll tell you what to expect during the expo aside from coffee beans. So we'll have exhibitors like El Capitan, who will be bringing their um, small roaster and other coffee equipment, brewing equipment that people can buy actually, and we'll also show some do some demos on how to prepare coffee using pour over, even espresso, and we'll also give away some free coffees for those who's going to visit us there. Aside from that, of course, we'll be there to talk about Philippine coffee if you have any questions about it. Yeah, but
Nice.
so I'll let Sly talk about the different ways of preparing coffee because he's a two-time Philippine national barista champion. So if you're not aware, there's a competition for baristas. So
Whoa.
he represented the Philippines twice in the international stage. So Sly, take it over. Take over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slide about that competition first before you tell us about the methods, because that's something that is super interesting to, I'm sure, a lot of our listeners. There's a barista championship or competition. How does that work?
Yeah, there's several coffee competitions, and the most popular one is either the World Barista Championships or the World AeroPress Championships. Both are different brewing methodologies. The barista competition is very exciting because they use the espresso machine and grinders, and there's a lot of expensive equipment and showmanship involved. And basically, it's 15 minutes. You have to serve three courses, four drinks per course, and every mistake you make is 1 point off of your score.
Ooh.
So it's a pretty serious competition, and it's very hard to put together routines and things. And I competed in 2016 for the first time and won again in 2017. So I love espresso, a little short, very strong, delicious cup of coffee. And that's I think, the most complicated way you can make coffee. And probably the easiest way you can make coffee these days is you stick water and beans in a blender and you spin it and you can let it soak for an hour, 2 hours, and then filter it through a paper filter or a mesh filter, and you're gonna get some kind of delicious cold brew coffee maybe out of it.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of coffee brewing methodologies because of coffee's gone all around the world, and before the age of the internet, nobody knew what anyone else was doing. So basically, everyone was just trying to get their kick out of that cup. And
Right.
since that, we've all learned about each other's brewing methods and how they affect flavors on the cup and stuff. Now we can effectively choose a brewing method or a brewing tool to match the kind of flavor profile we're looking for in the coffee. I think it's become that sophisticated. But at a very basic level, there's a lot of things that you can brew with. There's a lot of good practices and bad. And there's no one way to best brew a coffee, but you should brew a coffee that you enjoy. So yeah, hopefully during the expo we'll be able to show you some of those things. Some espresso machines at El Capitan and some brewing equipment,
Hmm.
and also taste a lot of different things in your coffees. That's the most important about brewing. I guess if we make an analogy to beer or wine, a lot of the processes that go into making that delicious cup are done before they're put into the bottle or the can. Whereas in coffee, you have to prepare it fresh to unlock all of the amazing flavors and aromas in it. Otherwise, you're losing maybe 10, 15, 20% of the flavor potential of that cup if it's not made like really well. So
Mm.
yeah, that's a little bit about brewing and why we have to brew and why there's so many brewing methods out there.
Yeah, because I was only really familiar with the basic. Well, a French press was. I felt so exotic when I was using a French press. I was like, man, I'm so cool.
It's a wonderful brewing device,
I was
yeah.
like, this is so cool. But then I see the YouTube videos of people like the pour over and the what's that big? It looks like a flask. What do you call that method?
Siphon, yeah, like a Japanese
Siphon.
siphon, I guess.
Yeah, it's incredible the diversity that there is in coffee, and of course, it's all available to learn about at the Philippine Coffees Expo. Joe, I wanted to ask you, since you started as a consumer. I mean, I think all of you probably started in to some extent as a consumer, but Joe, you kind of gravitated towards it a little bit later. Would you say what is your perfect cup of coffee now versus when you were drinking the regular or the the cookie cutter coffee from a name brand? Is there has it changed? I mean, I think your taste has changed. I'm guessing. So, what is a perfect cup of coffee for you now?
I'd like to echo what Sly said earlier, that the perfect cup is the one that you enjoy. So that's the thing.
Mm,
So my favorite cup changes with every mood. It's like when
mm-hmm,
you make a mixtape and like you have a specific playlist for every mood. I also
mm.
have different
Different
favorites,
cups.
different flavor notes for every certain mood or time of the day. And TR is smiling because this was how I used to sound like when I went to his shop and he would ask me, "What does the coffee taste like?" And I'd tell him, "It tastes like 4 p.m." Like, and he was like, "Okay." So
Nice,
yeah,
nice.
yes.
Yeah, when it comes to coffee notes and coffee tasting, the how long would you say, as someone who, or as the three of you have been all about coffee for several years now, many years now, the palate, learning how to taste notes of a certain coffee must take some time and practice and a lot of coffee, I'm assuming. But Ron, can you tell us about how long it takes how long it would take somebody rather to kind of get good at tasting the notes of coffee?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, actually, it will depend on the person really, but and also how open-minded that person would be
Hmm.
in trying different coffees, because that's really the key there. You have to really try different coffees from different regions, different processes, different brewing methods, because just like what uh, Slight said, different brewing methods will bring out different characteristics of the coffee. So but I guess it's more of familiarizing yourself with certain different food, no? Right? Or fruits. For example, there are coffees that would taste like blueberries or even strawberries. But if you're not the person who eats or haven't tried the blueberries yet, so you wouldn't know, right?
Hmm.
So it's really more like trying different eating different things to get familiar with different notes of coffees, but not all coffees are have the same notes. Like if you have coffees from Ethiopia, then you'll get berries uh, from the coffee. Or if you
Mhm.
have coffees coming from, let's say, Benguet, then you'll have coffees tasting like toasted nuts, some almonds, some calamansi. So, different origins produces different characteristics in the coffees.
Yeah, I think that's
So,
fantastic.
yeah,
The
just
depth
just try
depth
different coffees.
Just try it and you'll learn, right? Just keep drinking coffee. Have you guys ever had a caffeine overload? Or are you guys immune to it because you probably drink so much of it? Because I know some people that get the term might be wired or cracked off of coffee. Is that something that you had to kind of surpass as people that are surrounded by the beverage?
Um, I get caffeine crash, so it creates the opposite. Like when I have too much caffeine, I get sleepy.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah, I remember one time I had drip coffee tends to have a lot of caffeine, surprisingly. And in high school, I maybe drank a cup and a half before a history exam, and I was so jittery and I was so sweaty because I had too much caffeine, and I wrote it so fast, and then I was sweating, and then yeah, I had that overdose of caffeine, and then the crash that Joe is talking about. I felt super like tired and sleepy. So
Mm.
it does still happen to me every now and then, but yeah, especially after, like Joe said, I think she came from a cupping or a tasting today, and when you have to taste a lot of coffees, maybe my threshold now is 16 coffees to taste, and then like I don't want to drink anymore. But it takes time for me to go back to being able to drink 64, not drink the whole cup, but
Right,
taste
right.
64
Taste.
cups. At some
Wow.
point, yeah, we can be immune, but yes,
Okay.
I think we drink tolerable levels. I don't know about Joe. She's got one for every few hours, so maybe her blood is already half caffeine.
I guess the important question lies: Did you pass that history exam? Do you remember?
Well, I'm still here, right? I made it.
There we go. So there we go. I mean,
No,
coffee can kill you,
finished high
man.
school then, so yeah, definitely got through that one.
All right,
But yeah,
great.
still hit by caffeine for sure.
Okay. The thing that I guess I want to also talk more about is the Philippines as a coffee producing nation. So you've talked about transparency. You've talked about getting, awareness brought to the different farmers that are producing the coffee for us. But on an international level, where would you say Philippine coffee is? Are we like a major player in Philippine coffee? I know, Sly, you said earlier that we were kind of late. We were late to the party in some aspects of coffee production and coffee
Yeah.
like knowledge here as a country. But in terms of the other coffee people across the world, how do they view the Philippines? If they were say, oh, when they hear the term Philippine coffee, how would they normally react? Like the big players in coffee.
From my perspective, I think
Mm.
Philippine coffee for most coffee professionals is still a mystery.
Mhm.
They're unfamiliar with it. They're curious about it. They've maybe tried or heard something in the international community. It is acknowledged as part of the coffee growing regions of the world, and it has been a number one producer in the world in the
Mhm.
last 100 years. But currently, I think it sits at like 20, 25, something really small. But what I'd like to say is that a lot of the coffee professionals from other countries who have tasted good Philippine coffee find it very exciting and find the flavor profiles to be diverse.
Mhm.
So that means that we have a lot of different things because we're on a bunch of different islands that coffees can taste really different from around the Philippines. So, in summary, I think that a lot of coffee professionals from around the world are very excited. And those who have tasted Philippine coffee will probably say that it's up there with the best producing countries in the world.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that tourism is a big focus. It's one of your big focuses when it comes to coffee. How would you say is the best way to approach that? Promoting Philippine coffee? Is it social media? Because for me, when I hear of coffee across the world, it's usually on TikTok or or,
Yeah.
or Instagram, right? Is that the best way to approach it to educate, or I
Well, I
guess,
mean,
yeah, a platform for Philippine
for
coffee?
sure, a lot of people will interact with media and ideas through social media, like Instagram. But my approach was to get rid of all the crappy coffee in these really expensive
Mhm.
resorts and restaurants in my area of the world, and try to give them a Philippine coffee where the person serving it can tell them this is a delicious cup from our country. That's me helping them put it in the mouth of our customer and helping them understand that, like kind of pushing it almost in a way like this is good, like use this instead.
Yeah.
And I found that a lot of people have come that I introduced Philippine coffee to that aren't familiar with do enjoy it and do appreciate it, and want to interact with it more after they've had it their first time. So my way is the sneaky way: put it in your breakfast and then tell you that it's good, and
Yeah.
hopefully you come to appreciate it.
I'm sure. I'm sure. And there seems to have been a big shift in coffee. Like, well, I guess the younger generation, they seem to be all about coffee. Like I always see on everyone's IG stories, got my coffee. But I guess the concern is it's usually from the consumer brands. So how is there a different approach to, because you can't get everyone to go to these resorts get the coffee firsthand. How about reaching out to the just the everyday consumer, the ones that make their daily coffee runs at the typical places? How do you get Philippine, Philippine coffee into their hands? What is the best approach for that? And if any of you have any opinions on that?
Um, so for Kubo, what we did was one of the things that we do is we targeted those who brew at home. So we're not actually supplying to stores. So we saw that especially at the start of the pandemic when coffee shops were closed, and a lot of people were still looking for coffee, and a lot of them wanted their coffee hot because it's easier to access like cold brew or like
Mhm.
bottled lattes, but like they wanted hot coffee. So they started going to YouTube University
Yeah.
and how to brew. So when the number of home brewers like rising, we thought, hey, maybe it's roasteries can have a shot this time. So we put it up, and then it's just on Instagram. So it's just a very social media based store. So I
That's
guess
cool.
that's one of the things that we did. And then for the creator for where I work, we also put up an online delivery. So for bottled drinks, so that's another thing.
Okay. I like how you mentioned the school of YouTube, University of YouTube. Like, one of the biggest crazes at the beginning, I'm sure you all, I don't know if you participated in it. I don't know if you laughed at the trend of, was it Dalgona coffee, the Korean coffee or whatever, but everyone went crazy about that. I'm sure you guys, saw it on your feed somewhere. What if there was going to be a Dalgona coffee equivalent to, if you were able to make one Philippine coffee viral? Is there one that you think that would be cool? Like one that looks cool like that? Like Dalgona had it was appealing because it looked like really interesting to make and it was fun to make. Is there something like that for us if it were to go viral?
Um, I think before there was the longa. I think the Philippine trend was ube latte. I don't
Ube
know if you
latte.
guys have come in contact with that. It's a little bit old now, but it's the last kind of like big, interesting coffee thing where people would mix taro and
Mhm.
sometimes coffee, sometimes not, and make a latte out of it. I think that was pretty delicious and interesting.
Yeah.
Brought people to cafes, and it's a really very unique taste experience, to be honest with you, having ube root crop with your coffee. So I think
Nice.
that's one that I might get behind these days.
Okay. Good. That's good. Ron, anything you care to share about coffee and just social media in general? Anything that you want to input that hasn't been said by Joe and Sly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, they already said it
They covered
well.
it all.
So, yeah.
Well, I guess on that note, then, since we're talking about social media and the Philippine Coffee Expo, where can they catch you all online before we wrap things up tonight? Can you please remind everyone, or at least inform everyone, where they can catch up for all the details for everything that's happening on October 23 to 31?
Okay, so first, we would like to invite everyone to join us this coming Saturday, October 23, until the 31st for the first Best of the Philippine Coffees Expo. So we actually have a Facebook page for that expo. Just search for it, Best of Philippine Coffees Expo. And while you're at it, also check Philippine Coffee Guild on our Facebook page as well. We have actually recordings there from webinars that we did last year. So you learn a lot about coffees and other topics within the coffee industry. And aside from that, come Saturday, meet us there in person. Let's talk about coffee. Let's talk about Philippine coffees. Let's enjoy talking about it over a cup of delicious coffees. We're going to demo some ways to prepare your coffee and bring some money. Buy your coffee equipment there. Buy your delicious Philippine coffees there. Yeah, and just enjoy. Unimart is actually pet friendly, so if you have your furry friends with you, bring them. And also, our friends from 1C Coffee will be there to serve their coffees as well. Yeah.
All right, cool. And just a reminder, also, what time can they get there, and up till what time does it run? And also, in terms of vaccination status, do they have to be fully vaccinated? I'm sure that's also a concern that some might have when they go out. Is there a
Mhm.
requirement to be vaccinated to participate?
Yeah. Okay. So the mall opens 9:30 a.m. and they close at 7 p.m. So the expo will run during those times. Now everyone can come in. The expo is free. Anyway, so we don't have a dining space there. So we will not be asking for your vaccination cards, unlike if you're going to dine in at some
Mhm.
restaurants. But yeah, so yeah,
Okay, so go check
ev-
it out, October 23 to 31 at Unimart in Capital Commons. And
mhm.
Ron, since you're already the speaker right now, anyone you want to shout out? Of course, shout out your if you want to shout out Yellow Turtle Coffee as well, or just your friends
Mhm.
and family where they can follow you online.
Okay,
Feel
so let me load my Microsoft Word. I've got 10 pages here to read. Okay, so yeah, so first of all, I would like to thank our partners, the Department of Trade and Industry, and TTI Cordillera Autonomous Region, OIC Regional Director Juliet Lucas, our partners ACDI Boca Philcafe, TG Ryan and
Meron
team,
na.
uh, USDA, Department of Agriculture, USEC Lavinia, the PRDP, USEC Kayanan, the LSU President Brother Oka, LaSalle Food and Water Institute Director Dr. Mel Garcia, our friend El Capitan Raymond So, and
Yeah.
Miss Cherry Cruz of Curb Coffee collaborators, and so on and so on. We have a lot of people to thank.
and Joe, I know you have a really awesome Instagram name. If people want to catch up with you, and also tell us about anything any projects that you're working on and what you want to promote this
I
evening.
will try to be as short as possible. Yeah, so if you're on Instagram, yeah, my handle is the cup of Joe. Okay, so yeah, I want to just say hello to my coffee family over at the Curator. Of course, the rest of the guild who are watching right now, and the coffee community in general. Special shout out to Rika G from Dito sa Wansi and Abby for making this takeover happen. Also, just Alisa Reyes, if you're watching, and the 7GH boys, Dave, Don, Sep, and Kiko, my students who might be here, colleagues and friends from the LSU and the LaSalle Food and Water Institute, Sir Mel, hello, and the rest of the people who follow Kubo. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And of course, if you're ever in El Nido, hit up Sly. Sly, tell us, of course, your projects in El Nido, but also just everywhere that you want people to see you
So yeah,
online.
our coffee roastery is based in El Nido, but we ship nationwide. That's lick.ph, lick.ph, with some really great Philippine origins. We're about to launch our new series of coffees, so check that out online. And my new coffee retail shop that I'm working with in my team in El Nido, it's called Islas Maquinas, at islas.maquinas, and that's our moto kitchen and coffee bar there, where we serve some of these great Philippine coffees, and we also serve great coffees from other roasters around the world. And I'll just keep one more thing to say before my thanks. Please check out this new online coffee service, which I've just started working on. It's called Coffee 24/7, featuring El Union. And using the same great coffees and energy that we have at El Union, we're helping a brand called 24/7 Coffee deliver you guys coffee and coffee drinks anytime online, anywhere in Metro Manila. So in select areas, it's already on Grab and Food Panda, and by the next 2 weeks, you'll be able to get it all across Metro Manila. We have a really stellar cold brew latte and all sorts of other good stuff there. So go check that out. I'd like to say thank you to my very hardworking team, who we've been working super hard to make that 24/7 coffee happen. The guys in El Nido and also here in Manila, who've been working hard in our fams here, Cloud Eats. Shout outs to all my coffee family. There's plenty of them. Love you all. Wish to see you on Saturday. I'll try to spend as much time with you guys out there to have some very delicious cups of coffee. Thanks to my team in East Las Maquinas and Lick and El Union and OCN here in Manila for always helping me out. And of course, Philippine Coffee Guild and the rest of the coffee fams. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Can I
Bye,
say a few more?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, my boss will kill me if I don't greet him. So hi to Aaron Del Pozo of Yellow Turtle Coffee, of course. How can I forget? And of course, how can we forget to thank all the coffee farmers in the Philippines? Thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication in in producing these delicious coffees. You bring life to the coffee industry. Without you, there will be no Sly Samonte, there will be no Ronyo or Joe or the Philippine Coffee Guild for that matter. So,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you very much.
And to all our monsters, support the farmers, the roasters, and everyone that loves coffee. If you want to support Philippine coffee, make sure to once again check out the Philippine Coffee's Expo 2021, October 23 to 31. Join us again next week for more hot conversations here on Heard on Thursdays. My name is JC Tevez. Have a wonderful evening and keep it locked always on the Monster. Good night, everyone.
The views expressed in this program do not